greatest matches. I can remember this match with Onita we had. It was a barbed wire match. It was me and Pogo against Onita and I think, Gonoski. And we were in Tokyo. We was at Hakata Star Lane. It's a building with a low roof. Seats like about 3,000 people, just all jammed in there, packed. And the match was going incredible. It was a barbed wire match. It was just going right. And the crowd's reaction, their voices, they were so loud. They got to this point, I've never experienced it again, but they got so loud that all of a sudden it's like all of their voices was almost like a melody. It was like one note. It was like just one note sound. It was ear piercing. It was incredible. And but that was fan reaction. Right. So my most memorable matches, I guess, it'd have to be the first time I wrestled Hayabusa for the FMW. What was the name of the belt? The FMW Brass Knuckles Champion.
They had the longest name for this.
Yeah, it was the Frontier Martial Arts World's Heavyweight Brass Knuckles Champion. That was the exact name. Wrestled him. He won the match, but the match it came off great. And it was like one of my first times where I thought, oh my gosh, this has really come together. It's really working. Because the fans were just really there. And I'd have to also give my kudos to Masato Tanaka. Worked him in Kawasaki Baseball Stadium in front of about 35,000 people. And that was the first time we really went out there and put everything that we knew we could do together with each other. Stole the show, basically.
There was a company called Tokyo Pop that took the FMW footage and re-released it here in the States with American commentary.
Actually, I've heard of them.
But you haven't watched?
No.
Okay, my question was going to be what you thought about what they did with the commentary.
Oh, I have no idea. Did you hear it?
Yeah, they changed some of the names and the storylines, but if you haven't, we won't go down that road if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I don't care.
You want to talk about Onita? I'm just going to throw the name out there and whatever comes to your mind.
Onita. Every time I think of Onita, I think of the guy that saved my wrestling career. Because if he would not have brought me to Japan, I'd probably be an accountant right now. Oh, gosh, that'd be lame. Could you imagine that? That would be lame. But Onita had a great insight by going to Puerto Rico, wrestling down there, doing the barbed wire, the blood and guts type stuff, and then taking it all back to Japan and doing it in Japan. And, that's basically where it came from. It all came from Puerto Rico, the tables, the chairs, the barbed wire, everything. Although I don't think they were putting people through tables in Puerto Rico quite the way it evolved. But, I think Onita kind of started another genre in wrestling. Or maybe he didn't start it, but he kind of got it to mass appeal where everybody started to take notice. And also with Sabu working with Onita, and then him developing his talents while he was there with what was going on, and then he brought it back to the States, just kind of took off, mushroomed from there. So
a lot of people that are watching this video have seen some of your early matches, and they probably know some of the barbed wire death matches and some of.
Oh yeah.
One that I remember was you were on it was like a little island, and the ring was on a little island?
Not an island. We were actually in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That was the Tokyo Jingu pool match. The ring was floating. Well, I guess it was an island. The ring was floating on pontoons. Two sides had barbed wire. Two sides had nothing, but in the water, there were actual landmines, landmines, water mines, I don't know what they were, concussion grenades, whatever they used. But the funny thing about it, or maybe not so funny, we're in the dressing room. The president of the company comes over with this diagram of the ring. Really nice looking diagram, barbed wire, the bombs and everything. And he's talking in Japanese to everybody, and it was a 6-man match. And he's talking to Japanese and everybody's sitting there going, oh. And I'm like, what the heck? What's going on? So then, boom, he starts talking in English, struggling to get it out again. And basically says to me, these bombs that are in the water, don't land on them. They can hurt you really bad if you land on them. Make sure when you because I was getting thrown in and blown up. Make sure when you get thrown in the water, don't land on the bombs. Oh, that's real reassuring. There's a whole line of bombs there. And the swimming pool's over my head. I got wrestling boots on, jeans. But they did have a rescue swimmer. They had a guy in a scuba diving mask and, the whole tanks, the whole setup. And as soon as we got blowed up, he would slide in the water and go rescue us and take us back to shore. It was crazy.
What was the worst injury you sustained in FMW?
In FMW, that would have to be this arm right here. I don't know if maybe you want to zoom in on it, or can you see that scar there? Is it still visible? I got a little bit of hair on my arm right now, but I got a scar going from right here all the way around to here. Mm-hmm. I was doing a tope, my dive over the top rope to this guy called the Shooter. Wears a mask. Go to dive over on him. He ducks. So I fly right over him, put my arms down out in front of me, and this one hyperextended. And you got a ball and socket in there, okay? And actually the ball joint, half of it split in half, just totally sheared off. And it was causing my arm to continually pop out of the socket. And actually I finished the tour over there because I went to the hospital that night. They x-rayed it. They said they couldn't find anything. And so I was like, well, okay, I'll just tape it up, hardcore. Taped it up, finished out the tour, came home, didn't do any working out because it was so sore. And well, it didn't work out. It would have just popped out of place anyways. Went back to Japan, thought it was all right, didn't tape it up, did a drop kick, first night corking on, did a drop kick, came down, boom, elbow popped out of joint. I was like, oh my gosh, and it was extremely painful when that happened, extremely. So finished out the tour, taped it up every night, finished out the tour, came home, went to my doctor here. He's telling me I got a ball joint that split in half, needed to do surgery. So basically what he did was took half the ball joint out, the part that was split, broke my arm further up, rotated it, put some screws in it, and the reason he rotated it was so that it would sit on the actual joint properly. And that's as far as I can extend my arm, which kind of sucks.
How long was your rehab on that before you got
it should have been like about 10, 11 months, but FMW wanted me back after 6 months, 5 or 6 months, and like an idiot, I went back. But I didn't re-injure it, so. Yeah, that was one of the worst injuries. I got another bad injury too with FMW. It wasn't really quite with FMW though. I was working with FMW, the heavyweight champ. There was another company that was actually closing. They were having their last match, and they had wrestlers from other companies coming in. So FMW actually sent me over to this company to wrestle.
What's this for?
I can't remember the name. It was a shoot company, but it was one of those shoot companies that actually worked it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's many of them, or there was, I don't know. But anyways, I had the match and everything, and I had a move that I do. I'd do the leapfrog to the top rope and dive out and hit down the clothesline. Well, this guy, instead of being far away, was directly under me. So instead of jumping out and diving, hitting him with the clothesline and falling on my chest and everything, I came straight down on my feet. And their mats outside the ring were really thick as opposed to ones in FMW that were really thin. So right when my foot hit the mat, straightened my legs out, but I wasn't planted yet. And right when I straightened my leg out, boom, it popped out of joint and blew the ACL out. And actually, what I did there was sent one of the young boys back to the back to get me a roll of tape, taped up my knee so it would hold it in place, and finished the match. Kind of stupid, really.
What was different about, before when Onita was on top and then when Onita left?
The match style changed. The matches changed. They became a little more wrestling oriented with the tables and chairs added in. That's what changed as far as the matches. But felt like the overall office changed. It just wasn't really the same. It just wasn't the same feeling. And so I just didn't feel obligated anymore. I just didn't feel obligated. I guess what it boils down to.
One of the criticisms you have of the hardcore style is you come to a point where you just can't top yourself.
Yeah.
Do you think that before when Onita left at the point he did, do you think there was a point where you just couldn't top yourself?
No, actually, after Onita left, I think that's when I really started topping myself.
Okay.
I did quite a few things over in Japan that I'd never even done here. I wasn't in ECW long enough to do everything I did over there that involved tables and all just crazy stuff. And of course, never had the opportunity in WCW or WWE.
So what cruiserweight? How do you think FMW wrestling was perceived by some of the more traditional groups in Japan?
Oh, they did not respect it at all. They thought we were definitely garbage wrestling. But now you look at the big companies in Japan, and you see a table being slipped in, a chair slid in here and there. So they take cues from us. Yeah. And also, like, Muda, he's wrestled against Onita in the barbed wire matches. He's done it himself. So, it's worked out. Now, actually, here's a little story. Talking about Japan, how did they perceive it? Well, let's talk about how like the people in the U.S. perceived it, the wrestlers, because this was maybe back in '96, I believe it was. I just come off of a 9-week tour in Japan. Did Japan, Korea, and South Korea and China, and just come home. Was home 2 days. Victor Quinones picked me up, took me to Orlando to have a tryout with the WWE, and my left knee was already blown out. I had this big old knee brace on. I didn't even want a job with him. I was heavyweight champ in Japan, but Victor was shooting his mouth off or something, said he had this guy, and they were like, let's see him, and I wound up being sucked into that. But anyways, I wrestled just incredible. But anyways, I brought a couple magazines with me because I wanted to show Big Titan. He was there wrestling. Big Titan was my tag team partner over in Japan for quite a while. And so Titan and I were thumbing through the magazines. We're looking at them. And there's some pretty big full-page pictures of me powerbombing somebody through a table. And I remember Bret Hart walking up. Bret Hart leans over my shoulder, looks at me. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but he made some kind of snide comment about us using tables and wrestling like that I wasn't really wrestling. But, he's a technical wrestler. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, man, they just don't understand. They just don't get it. They just don't get it, because the fans in Japan that were watching it, they loved it. They thought it was great. We had our hardcore fan base, just like we did in ECW. And there are fans out there that like it and love it, respect it. So there you go.
And were you paid pretty well? I'm not asking for numbers, obviously. Yeah. Were you paid pretty well in FMW?
Yeah. Compensated me well.
Good,
yep.
Good.
TitleMatchNetwork.com